financial literacy, and the human condition. Welcome to Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Rayam.
Hi, it's Francis. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for watching this video. If you're catching us on YouTube, please help us help others by clicking like, subscribe, and all notifications so you don't miss any videos. And check back for the next video. I think you're going to love it. Thanks again. For more information, you can visit us at hugyourmoney.com.
Welcome to Financial Fitness. I'm Jess Tyler, along with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Rayam. Hi.
Hi, Jess. How are you?
I am good. You are recovering from a little bit of a cold?
Yeah. Well, a sinus infection, unfortunately.
Your
you can
voice
still
sounds
hear
great,
it.
though. Yeah, not much, though. It's almost sounds perfect.
Thank you. What are you driving these days?
I mean, I'm going back and forth on whether I trade it in or not. I'm an older BMW. And yeah, it's a really cute little car, but it's time to go in, but I just don't want a car payment.
What year? BMW.
It's 2015.
It's not quite old enough for what I'm looking for this segment, but it's getting close.
What are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about classic cars as an investment.
Okay.
And BMW happens to be one of the ones that's gaining in popularity, but we're talking about early 2000s for BMWs. But there are lots of other things to pay attention to. There was a great article where there was an interview from Hagerty. Hagerty is classic car insurer, and they know a lot about classic cars. And the thing that I found most fascinating about it, well, there were lots of interesting things, but the thing I found most fascinating is that when you think of classic cars, we think of baby boomers, right? Where's all the money? Baby boomers have all the money. They're buying those 50s, 60s muscle cars, right? Dodges and things. So the Charger, whatever. And it turns out that now it's millennials and Gen Zers that have the high interest in buying classic cars.
Oh, that's surprising.
It's a little surprising. It's sort of a matter of economics. If you think about it, in 2008 financial crisis, right? After that, the job market, it was anybody's guess. I mean, people were worried about just affording their car, never mind whether they liked it or they wanted to buy a fun car, right? They were just worried about affording it. But, 15 years after that, plenty of money is hanging around. And guess who's got it? The millennials and the Gen Zers. And there are a number of reasons that they might be interested in buying collectible cars as an investment. And this is quite far from the kinds of things that we normally talk about on this show, right? We talk about investments in annuities and investments in, other kinds of products that you might expect, CDs and other kinds of financial products and securities. But in terms of hard investments, people often ask me about real estate. Is real estate a good investment? Blah, 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 right? But almost nobody asks me about cars, yet they buy cars. And I think the idea is that I will say a car is a bad investment. It loses money.
When you first brought this up, that's exactly what I thought you would think, because you always hear that as soon as you drive off a lot, it depreciates. Now, I know a classic car would be different, but you have to throw a lot of money into that, right?
Well, it depends on the car. And that's part of the appeal of these, dare I call them, newer classic cars. We're talking about late 80s, early 90s.
So sad that that's an older car now, a classic.
Well, I mean, even into the early 2000s, still classics. Now, people who know me know I love cars, right? One of my partners used to say that I romanticized cars. I gave them names and I like to drive them. And it's really true. I really like cars, but I don't see them as an investment typically. All right, let's draw the line here. All right, the most expensive car sold in 2023 at auction was sold at the Sotheby's Paris auction for a little over what would equate to $10 million today.
Wow. What kind of car was that?
That was, let me see, a Bugatti. It was a one-of-a-kind Bugatti Profilee.
Oh, makes sense.
Chiron Profilee. So it sold for 9,792,500 euros.
Wouldn't you be scared to ever drive that?
Yeah.
I guess you don't buy it to drive it, but yeah.
Okay. So now there's a lesson. If you're just getting into this, or if you're thinking, hey, I might like to buy a car as an investment, and you're trying to rationalize that with your partner or just with yourself, right? Buy what you like. Buy something that's fun. Don't worry so much about it going up in value. I say this to people when they talk about should they buy gold or silver or should they buy Bitcoin or what should, everybody's concerned about what will I buy that I'm guaranteed it will go up in value. And thank you for playing. It doesn't work like that. Certainly not in the classic car market. There are some things that you can pretty much rest assured are probably going to go up in value, like that Chiron, right? But $10 million, I mean,
Yeah.
people getting into this don't have that kind of money. What they could be looking for is something that they have an interest in that is fun, that they would like to maybe drive, let's say, to car shows, right? That maybe they register, if it's old enough to be an antique, they can register and pay 1/7 of the insurance and only drive it on Sundays or to car shows, right? So there's a way to keep your costs down a little bit about this. One of the things you could do to keep your costs down is do your research. Can you get parts for these things? How readily available are they? Can you get them at reasonable prices? Who's going to do the work on this car when it breaks or in order to get it ready for a car show or for resale? So this might digress a little bit, but I've already confessed that I like cars. And in my garage right now is a 2005 Jaguar S-Type and a 2005 Mini Cooper S convertible. Now,
do you ever drive those?
I drive them all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the Mini Cooper S convertible, I actually purchased new, knowing that I would never drive it in the winter. It's never seen salt or a snowflake. It's in perfect condition. But I take it out once they sweep the streets. When they sweep the streets, that's my clue for, okay, I can take the convertible out for a drive. Now, clearly, I have to be able to afford to do this. If this was a stretch for me, if I were talking to a client and this was a stretch, or they had other things they needed to spend their money on, I would say, don't do it, right? So the Jaguar I bought used, and I bought it just in March of this year. But I wanted a little background here. I had a rotator cuff problem, and driving the Cooper was, it's a more tactile, sports car kind of drive. You're really stuck to the road, but every little bump moves the wheel. And it's a standard. And I was just feeling it in my shoulder. And I thought, I've got to do something different, either park it, or maybe it's time for me to buy some sort of luxury sedan. So when I looked at luxury sedans, I looked at all kinds of things. Jaguar S-Type turned my head. Now, mechanics will tell you didn't make a smart purchase. It's not maybe the most reliable of the cars. You're going to spend money repairing it. They will leak oil. They will do these things. Okay, to me, that's almost part of the charm. The fact that the English would rather have beautiful burled wood on the dashboard than to get the electronics right, as I think there was a movie quote somewhere. Excuse me. That's part of its charm, believe it or not, to me. I don't expect to sell it for 3 times what I bought it for. I love driving the car. It's a beautiful car. It was a special order, radiance red, cream colored interior, had 73,000 miles on it. It's an '05. That's like 3,500 miles a year. Okay.
Yeah. It was somebody's baby. Yeah.
It was a one owner. The guy was 93 years old and he was going into a facility and his friend was helping him sell the car. I had it looked at. I have a good mechanic. I'm fine with that. It's not my daily driver. I mean, if something is wrong with it, recently I parked it for 2 weeks while I drove my Toyota RAV4, which is my daily driver, right? So this is the kind of story that you'll hear from car collectors across the country or across the world. They have something they rely on every day to drive back and forth to work. They can't afford and don't want to put the miles on their classic cars. But even those 2 cars are a little new to quite be collectible classics, but I'm aging and so are they.
Yeah.
And they are in pristine condition.
It seems like there's 2 ways to look at this with classic car collectors. One's an emotional decision and one's more financial. So the emotional one would be you've got 2 cars that you love driving and you take them out at specific times, but you're not expecting a big return. If you are expecting a big return, what should you do? Should you be looking for a car you're never going to drive and you're just going to park it?
Well, first of all, I think you'd be hard pressed to separate the emotion from the financial part when it comes to a classic car.
Okay.
Even people with deep pockets buy stuff that they have a fondness of, Oh,
Mhm.
I remember when my father used to drive us here in this car, and I want one of those, and I can afford to buy it, and I'm going to buy the best one I can buy.
Right.
Maybe they drive it, maybe they don't. There was a local person, I won't mention him by name, but people will know who he was. Avid car collector. I mean, huge garage with really spectacular automobiles. Somebody was paid to just take care of the automobiles. That was their
Nice.
job, right? But when he wanted to drive one, he could drive it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, what would I recommend? I would recommend what I said. Buy something that you like.
Hmm.
Hope that it goes up in value. Do your research. I'll give you some examples of things that Haggerty's thought on Haggerty. Haggerty puts out a bull market list every year.
Okay.
Their 2025 list isn't out yet, but it'll probably be out soon, I think. But the 2024 list highlighted some things like 1980s Lamborghini Countaches. Okay,
Okay.
that might cost you some money to buy, but also 2000 era BMW M3s.
Oh.
All right. Oh, she says,
Oh, well,
oh.
maybe I'll hang on to this. Rewind for 1 second. For those of us who don't know, what is a bull market list?
Oh, it's a list of things that you think are a good buying opportunity.
Okay.
All right, a bear market list would say hold back, don't necessarily buy, maybe sell. Okay.
Okay.
But bull market list is I'm buying it with the hope that it's going up in value.
Okay.
Maybe even the expectation that it has a good chance of going up in value. A surprise on that list might have been the Plymouth Prowler. Who
Oh, I don't
thinks
even
of a
remember that car. Yeah, I don't remember
well,
that.
it was a late 90s car. And the key here is they may go up in value. Haggerty isn't saying, look, if you look at our list, buy something here and it's going to be worth 3 times its value tomorrow. It's here's what we think might increase in value. Um, they also recommend, what's his name? McKeel Haggerty recommends don't buy cars only as an investment. And I would say the same
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Those two cars I talked about, I don't think they're the best investment in the world. I didn't buy them because I thought they would be an investment. I bought them because they spoke to me. Each car is very different from the other. Here's another little background, and I'm sorry to give you so much background on this, folks, but I just want you to understand when I'm talking about this topic, it's not that I'm an expert in the field. I'm just like you. If you're a car enthusiast, I'm just like you. My very first car that I remember actually putting together myself, and
Hmm.
registering and saying, this is my car, not something my
Yeah.
parents gave me to drive, was a 1960 Sunbeam Alpine. Now,
Oh, I
it
love
was
that.
old. If you think, how old is she? It was old when I built it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't the Tiger. I couldn't really afford to build a Tiger. A Tiger was, I think Maxwell Smart. If you ever saw a Maxwell Smart movie where he drove up in that little tiny British sports car with little fins on the
Yep.
back. Okay.
Hmm.
That looks like an Alpine, but they chopped off the fins and they stuffed a 289 engine in it and
Oh,
it screamed down the road and they called it the Tiger. I could not afford, nor would my parents probably have
let
approved of me
you.
building a
Yeah.
Tiger, but a 1960 Alpine I could build. And I got all the jokes you can imagine when I would go for parts. That's a Sunbeam. Wait, isn't that my razor I shaved with this morning? That's a car. I would get it all. Again, it was part of the charm. But I built it from 3 parts cars with 2 good mechanics who were close friends who helped me for almost no money. And I mean, I was right in there, hands on, greased up to my elbows, loving every minute of it. And that's probably where I got my real start in, I love cars. I love cars with round headlights. Now, you talk about an emotional or silly reason to buy a car. I really like the look of round headlights. I like round,
Hmm.
smooth lines. I recently, when I was car shopping, thought about a Tesla, and I loved the outside look of the Tesla, but I didn't like the inside look. It didn't seem old enough for me. I'm a throwback when it comes to cars,
Yeah, it's very techy on the inside of the Teslas.
It is, and that's part of their charm. But it wasn't for me. And so if you're looking at classic cars, we're going to talk to you a lot more, of course, about this. But thanks for letting me share my stories.
Well, let's get your phone number if people have questions maybe about investing in cars.
Oh boy, can't wait for this one. 413-773-3333.
You can also go to hugyourmoney.com. We'll be right back with part 2 of Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram, on WHMP.
Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor is sponsored by Hug Your Money. So unique, it's patented. Financial coaching and more information at hugyourmoney.com.
Welcome back to Financial Fitness. I'm Jess Tyler, along with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram. We're talking about classic cars as investments.
We are. It so makes me want to go out for a drive, though. Beautiful weather, clear roads. We have a beautiful area to drive in around here and see the sights. And it's just to go back to those the 3 vehicles sitting in my garage. If you think the Money Doctor has 3 vehicles, how good can she be with money? I'm just going to tell you, when I talk to people about money, it isn't about hoarding every penny. Money to me is a means to an end. Now, that doesn't mean you should blow it all and try and end up broke by the time you're 65, right? But there's a balance. There's a certain amount of money that you earn that can go for things that maybe someone else thinks is frivolous, but which pleases you, which makes you happy. That might be taking care of your grandchildren. It might be buying real estate. It might be traveling. It might be classic cars. But it's your money to do with what you want to. I'm just trying to help give some guidance as to if this speaks to you, if what you want to do is buy a classic car and you can afford it, not just afford to buy it, afford to repair it, afford to insure it, afford to let it sit undriven for who knows how much time. Basically, when people are buying classic cars and we're not sure they're going to go up in value, which is most people who buy classic cars, or go up in value enough, I would say give you caution in 2 areas. One is it only matters if it goes up in value if you plan to sell it. This is the same argument that we have about real estate when people say to me, part of my assets for retirement is my house. I have a lot of equity in my house. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to sell your house? And if so, are you going to have to spend that equity to buy the next house? Or are you going to live in it? Or are you going to take a reverse mortgage or something like that? Well, it's the same with cars. I don't want to hear about why you bought it because it's going up to 3 times its value unless you're going to extract that value in some way. Otherwise, I'm just happy you could afford it. You got a car you loved. Maybe you'll trade it for another car you love someday. But one of the things that appeals to people about this kind of an investment, as opposed to monetary investments that are non-tangible, is that these people meet. There's a society of car enthusiasts, and they race cars sometimes. They go to car shows, right? They have events. There was just a fundraiser event that my sister went to. Ironically, there was a funny coincidence here. Who has a car show once a year to raise money for a rescue league for pets. And they raised $14,000 for it in one day.
You see it all the time, especially in all the small towns. There's always car shows like every Saturday. I see them all the time. And then you see the long line of the classic cars driving by you. And I love that. I don't mind slowing down for that because it's so cool to see like the old Model Ts and like you said, some of the revved up sports cars. But I like the old, like the Model Ts and stuff.
Yeah, one of the things I like about this, Jess, is the individuality of it. You don't go to one of these car shows. I think Tom's Hot Dogs has a long history in Hatfield of having a car show as well. But if you go to that, you don't see, here's all the Plymouths lined up. Here's all the Fords lined up. You will see a vast variety of cars. And you'll see people who dress like their cars or who wear costumes from the period. I mean, people get into this.
It's a whole community.
Yeah, it's a community. Another thing people like to do is they go to what we call swap meets or parts fairs where you can walk around and find that wheel for your 1942 Hudson or whatever it was, And so there's a certain involvement in this, a personal touch to it that draws people in and makes them perhaps more interested in this as an investment as something else. I just want to caution you, no investment should take all of your money. This is an opportunity to diversify into something that you like to drive or care to own for some reason, and it may increase your portfolio in value. there's some interesting stats that we always like to tell you about stats so that, I'm not just pulling this out of my hat, hey, I like cars. Let's talk about cars today, right? Although, oh boy, Click and Clack. Oh my gosh, I used to love that show. They cracked me up. Um, but anyway, Yahoo Finance did a survey and they found that 75% of Gen Zers said that they loved or liked to drive. Now, this flies in the face of the fact that people say, oh, Gen Zers, they don't even want to get their licenses. They take an Uber everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, it isn't quite true. Now, that may also have something to do with economics, right? They're making more money, all of that. But it's really the baby boomers who drove that collector market, that large collector market up to a new level. But Gen Zers and millennials now are the ones out there fishing for cars. In fact, they did a survey on 40% of the people responded. And of those 47% of the people, Gen Zers, 60% of them said they had an interest in buying a classic car. Now, those are people born between 97 and 2012, right?
Okay.
Baby boomers, only 31% of them said they had an interest in buying a classic car.
Do we think that Gen Zers have an interest in it because they all moved home with mommy and daddy and now they can afford it?
Well, let me
could that
tell
be
you.
it?
Okay, here's my tough love money doctor moment. If you're living on mommy and daddy's couch and you buy a classic car and they let you do it, my brain rattles around in my head. This is for excess money. This is for money that you can afford to not recoup if you, at least at the lower levels, at the levels we're talking about, 80s, 90s, 2000, what do we say, BMW M3s and things. If you can afford to buy this and maybe be wrong, maybe it doesn't increase in value, then I think that's an okay buy for you and you want to do it, that's fine. I'm the perfect example of I probably would get my money out. Oh, here's another tip. Buy it right if you can get a great deal. Now, I shudder to tell you what I paid for that Jaguar, and it certainly wasn't because I was taking advantage of somebody. It was because the opportunity just popped right into my hands. I mean, yeah, I was looking around going, yeah, maybe some luxury sedan. How about this? How about that? No, I don't want to pay that much money. I looked at Maserati. Now, you would think Maserati,
wow.
here's a perfect example. You would think Maserati would cost you a fortune, be way out of the reach of most people. There were used Maseratis in the same age range as the Jag, 12, 13,000, sometimes $9,500. It's got the Maserati name on it, but my research led me to believe, oh no, you don't want that one because if it just needs brakes, it's $3,500, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. So you have to not just look at the name and the car, but what the cost of upkeep is, because if you let it run down, as I said, these two are in pristine condition and I keep them that way, right? If you let it run down, then you have a problem. Now, that being said, I want to talk to you about car repair for just a moment. Again, from personal experience. I had a problem with the air conditioning in the Jag. Now, I could pay $1,500 to $1,800 to repair the air conditioning if I took it to one mechanic and they just said, this is what's wrong, or I could take a different route. Now, you have to be able, well, for right now, the air conditioning isn't working, to tell you the truth, because I don't need the air conditioning working at the moment, but I have found a route to repair it for much less money. But you have to be willing to do those kinds of things and think about it as a monetary expense or investment. So for instance, my initial comment was, wait a minute, I only paid this much for the car. If I put that much into it, I will have overpaid for this car. I will have put more money into it than it's worth on the market. And because it's not a safety issue, it's not a mechanical issue, and I don't have this car as a straight investment, I just say, you know what, for this year, I'm going to roll down the windows or drive the convertible. What do I care if this doesn't have air conditioning at the moment?
Right.
It's a harder decision. You want to put it in perfect condition. You want it to always, keep it in pristine condition. But I watch out for these emotional rationalizations, like this is my baby, so I'm going to do it. Now, when it needed brakes, you betcha, I'm going to do it. If it needs something that, like oil, there's an oil leak, I'm going to do it, because that has to do with the health of the car
and maintaining the value of it.
That's right. Maintaining the value and its longevity and my ability to drive it happily and safely.
Yeah.
Those things are going to take precedence. But But the other things that are sort of fluff, if you want to put blue LED lights under your car, you need to think about how much you're increasing your cost basis. While we're in investment world here, let me use an investment term, how much your cost basis has increased. And are you able to get your money out of that if you sell it? If not, then what you're paying for is a hobby. And that's okay. Again, if you can afford it, if you and your partner are in agreement and it's not causing a major, row in your world, okay, then you call it a hobby and you throw money at it. But for a serious car enthusiast, a serious investor, you will keep track of your expenses and your cost basis on that vehicle and know what you can get out of it if you have to sell it today, tomorrow, the next day.
Well, two really important things that I think you said are research and having a good mechanic. Research that you're not overpaying it to begin with, but then also finding a mechanic that you trust that will lead you in the right direction where you might be able to do this repair and not do this other major one and still maintain the value. But finding a good mechanic is like number one.
Well, it is number one, but I will say that sometimes you start out trusting a mechanic, they build a relationship with you, maybe something changes in the back or something changes for them. And now now they know they've got your trust and they're starting to say, well, I think you should do this, that, and the next thing. Again, we go back to research. For just about any classic car, there are forums everywhere. You get on the internet, you find a forum. I learned a lot about the Jag before I bought it in forums where people said, you read the same messages over and over again. Hey, air conditioning might be a problem, or this might be a problem, or that might be a problem. You're not going to find, most often, you're not going to find a car that is perfect for everything. I looked at a Lexus. Lexus was one of the cars I considered, and they were pricier. And I thought at first, well, maybe they're pricier because they need less repairs, but I found the repairs to be just as costly. And the particular kind of Lexus I was looking at, I didn't find one I loved. And so I just moved on to another brand. I kicked a lot of tires, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when that Jag opportunity, I wasn't in a rush to do it. And that's what I'm saying to car enthusiasts too. Look, if this is something you want, it's not your daily driver. You don't have to do it today. Spend the time, enjoy the research. I test drove a number of different models and kinds of cars. I talked to people. I talked to mechanics about them. I called 2 or 3 mechanics and said, if I'm looking for a luxury sedan, maybe in this price range, what would you recommend? And they gave me opinions. And that's how I know. Some people said, well, the Jaguar S-Type, I don't know, but it'll be okay if it doesn't have these things, and they give you some parameters. And I think that's always worth looking at. So just like anything else, do your research, ask people, don't trust blindly. If you're looking at a car, ask if it's okay to bring it to your mechanic and have it gone over before you pay for the car, and make sure that you're getting something that is sound and that you're going to appreciate, and you're not buying a lemon or a
And
money.
I can imagine if they balk at that, then there's probably a red flag. They don't want you to bring it to your mechanic.
Yeah, I think there should be some way for you to at least get your mechanic to look at the records that are there. I wouldn't just trust a Carfax on these things. They're older cars. These cars were around before Carfax was. So
yeah, true.
All right, get somebody knowledgeable to help you. Yeah.
And what is your phone number if somebody wants to give you a call to ask some questions about this or anything else financial?
Sure. They can reach us at 413-773-3333.
And as always, you can go to hugyourmoney.com. This was fun today.
Thanks. I had fun too.
All right. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram, right here on WHMP.
Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor is sponsored by Hug Your Money. So unique, it's patented. Financial coaching and more information at hugyourmoney.com. Would you like to see your business on Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor? We offer a 15-year proven track record. We have limited openings, but are currently seeking sponsors and guests. Is your business a good fit? We'd like to start a conversation. Contact us today at 413-773-3333 or info@hugyourmoney.com.